views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. This has been a busy period of time for Bronx Community Board 9. They've been concerned about a proposed shelter in Parkchester, a bridge replacement project, and other Vision Zero initiatives. There's also got a new shopping center, the York Film Studios, and other housing and development projects to talk about. So tonight we will take a close look at the community board that serves the Bronx communities of Bronx River, Castle Hill, Classen Point, Harding Park, Parkchester, Park Stratton, Soundview, Bruckner, and Unionport. I understand it's the largest community board in the city, in the Bronx?
By population.
By population in the city.
Yes.
Right? All right. So please join me in welcoming the hardworking district manager of CB9. It is William Rivera. Nice to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having
And he
us.
brought with him his assistant district manager, Shirley Alonso. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having us.
And let's just start. The question I asked you when you came through the door, you're one of the only community boards to have an assistant. Makes a lot of sense. Helps you deal with the numbers of people you have to deal with.
It makes a lot more sense when you have a large district, almost 225,000 people. All the boards receive the same amount of funding. I think we're up to 254,000 each community board. Each board works very hard. We have to work a little harder. Our district's only 4 square miles, 225,000 people. It's a lot of more constituents, a lot of more service delivery. So I did a little research. I saw some boards have it, and we put a posting for assistant district manager about almost 3 years ago. So we're happy with Shirley, and she's born and raised in the district just like me.
Well, I guess we'll find out about Shirley before the next 30 minutes are up. But let's talk about this Parkchester shelter. This has been bandied about. Why don't you, you can start lay out for us what, what's been going on and what the concerns are and what the prospects are.
Yeah, we were notified at the beginning of this year by the Department of Homeless Services of a shelter coming in the district. 165 single males in Parkchester area, 2008 Westchester Avenue.
Westchester Avenue?
Yeah, 2008 Westchester Avenue. It's near the Parkchester train station, about 2 blocks away. And we had a meeting with the residents, and the residents were not happy. And we had several meetings with the elected officials, with DHS, with our concerns. I looked over the Turning the Tide of Homelessness, which is the mayor's initiative that he put out. And it's not, this shelter's not really a line of what he's doing. We have 2,017 individuals from Community Board 9 in the shelter system. And out of that, they cannot give me the exact number of how many are single males. They say around 70 to 80% are families. So that's around 1,500 individuals in the shelter system that are families with children, yet we're getting a shelter with 165 single
And
males.
will those 165 single men help relieve some of your own homeless situation?
Well, they can't answer that because they can't tell us how many single males are in the shelter system, and they can't guarantee that all 165 single males will be from our district. And this is the biggest problem we have. They're not being transparent.
What's the timetable on this thing?
They say winter, but I say by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. Is this now a done deal unless somebody comes up with a lawsuit or something else, or is there still a dialogue?
We're entertaining a lawsuit. This is a as-of-right project. This is the mayor's choice through DHS to give this contract to the vendor that's going there, Samaritan Village. I just want to make one point. We understand our moral responsibility to help people, and I will take the shirt off my back to give to somebody I like, helping everybody in my district. But the need is for family with children. And when you're putting in a shelter in that location, which is not a great location of 165 males in close proximity.
Why is that not a good, I mean, you say 2 blocks from a train station, they got to get to work or go somewhere, isn't that a good thing?
The train station is a good thing, but across the street there's a library, a block and a half away, the St. Helena School, and there's a charter school another block and a half away, and there's another school not too far, PS 106. So in the proximity of all the schools and the senior center across the street, these are the residents' concern and the board's concern. There is going to be an advisory committee, which I'll be on. To answer your question, this pretty much is a done deal. Doesn't mean we want it to fail. I will be on the advisory committee. I will make sure that the local merchants and businesses help. It is an employment shelter. I will be working with the with the clients and to make sure it is successful. But I think that the mayor didn't do the right thing by putting this. It's against his initiative.
Ms. Alonso, what do people say? I'll let you be the eyes and ears of the public. People come in and say, wait, we heard about this. Are they well informed? Talk to me a little bit about that.
They are. We heard a lot from parents that whose children attend the charter school, Bronx Excellence, which is actually right behind Assemblywoman Karina's office now, and they were outraged. They don't want the shelter here, and everyone understands, and I'll echo what William says, that we have a moral responsibility, but their preference would have been a family shelter, being that they have been informed that there's been a couple of cluster sites in our district that were family shelters that closed. And so having an all-male shelter, the residents feel is not what the community needs. There's not a need for that at the moment, and they're really worried.
Not a need for that necessarily in this community, at least
Correct.
according to the numbers that we heard.
Correct.
Let's just talk about, I want to explore it, and I'll ask both of you really. We'll start with you. The 5731 Broadway and the people in the West Bronx were very concerned about that. At this point, I'm not aware of any issues, community issues. I mean, maybe there's some individual issues. Of course, there's a precinct nearby, but there are shopping centers there. It's a very, very busy location, like 235th Street or something like that on Broadway. And that worked out. Is it possible? I mean, maybe you can talk about the prospects and your thoughts about that.
We really do hope that there isn't going to be any concerns. And like William said, he wants to be part of the council and he wants to make sure that this project succeeds. However, our residents are concerned that it being that high amount of all males, shelter there, that there could possibly be some concerns about safety.
Do you have a sense that, and I don't know who the provider is or the prospective provider is, do you have a sense that they understand what those issues are and can provide the kind of security that would make it work?
We met with them. I visited one of their employment shelters in Brooklyn. I went on a visit one of their advisory committees. I think that they understand that there is a stigma and there's reality and not reality. And the reality is here is that we have 2,000 individuals and 80% are families, and we're not getting that. As I Shirley pointed out, they're closing 920. This is the whole purpose of this plan, to close cluster sites, which is a great idea, and make facilities. All the cluster sites that close in our district, that will close, 29 total, are all family with children. And they can't tell us exactly where these clients are going, but they're opening up a single male. So I think we're getting dumped with a single male shelter in our district because it's our district.
What does that mean? I mean, that speaks to kind of like, gee whiz, they don't like us.
Yeah, well,
we hear this from many
our
communities would say the same thing.
Yeah,
we don't want this in our neighborhoods.
Our district is probably not as vocal as other communities or civically engaged, and I think that resonates when they make these decisions.
I mean, every Bronx district is a heavy immigrant community. This one is in particular as well.
Exactly.
Many Bangladeshis there.
There was a rally that was organized by our council member and with the charter school and the Bangladesh community. Karina Reyes wrote a letter.
I'm going to re-raise the issue that I raised a moment ago, and I know what your answer is going to be about the comparison to 5731 Broadway. Do you want to answer it, or I know what the answer really is? Because that was a family shelter, that was, or a women's shelter, that was not a men's shelter. And for you, that's the distinction, right?
It's what the need of our district. We need to facilitate what the need is, and that's the need with families and children. We are getting a family shelter. I just was notified not too long ago at 1600 Randall in our district is 99 single rooms with family with children. So that's a need that we have. But we're keeping an eye on the shelter, and we're going to work to make sure it's successful with the provider and the police, and make sure, hopefully, like you said, like what happened in Madison, there'll be no issue. Well, they call it Millionaires Row. That's why I keep on hearing that we'll have no issue.
Where is on Broadway?
Broadway or Madison?
That is not Millionaires Row. But they can call it anything they want, but that would not be descriptive of that part of the Bronx. But that's the right
Bronx.
attitude.
I thought you were talking about the facility in Manhattan.
No.
Facility in Manhattan.
5731 Broadway is up in the northwest Bronx.
Yes, I know that.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move to something else. This I was not aware of this till you brought it to my attention, that there's an issue with the Unionport Bridge replacement. Talk about that a little bit.
That's the drawbridge near the old Whitestone movie theaters that goes to our board, to Board 10.
Oh, I didn't realize that's the one you're referring to. Oh,
it's
my
a
goodness.
drawbridge
That is a nightmare.
It's a critical drawbridge because during the winter, oil is barged into that river. and the bridge needs to be replaced. About a year ago, 2 years ago, DOT came to us and spoke to both boards. We had a committee meeting at Scanlon High School to talk about the project, which could be 4 years long, and will be intense.
So it has not started yet. You have concerns.
It started last year, and traffic is bad there. We get a lot of complaints.
But is there an alternative? I mean, you know, if a bridge needs to be replaced, and I mean, these things do happen. They had to deal with the L train in Brooklyn, and you know, there's all these issues.
This is a necessity, and we understand that. It's just the point is, for 4 years for a small drawbridge was a little too long for me.
Oh, you thought that they could have shrunk it down?
There's other projects like the Tappan Zee Bridge and other bridges in the city, and large-scale projects that took less than 4 years. So that's something that we want to make sure stays 4 years, is not longer than, because some of these projects, they say 4 years, it could take 5. So we want to make sure it stays 4 years, and they do the right thing to keep the traffic agents there on both sides so traffic is flowing. There is a representative that meets with our office every month so we have any concerns with the bridge. So the communication is there. Our main concern is the time frame and make sure it's quick as possible.
Let's talk a little bit about the whole notion of Vision Zero. And I sit in this seat for so many years, and I hear from every community board differing opinions of it, and many of them don't like the whole idea of the road diets and the reformation of things. Ms. Alonso, you want to just talk a little bit about what you hear about what the possibilities are and what people are saying about them?
I think in my personal opinion, it started off to being a great concept. I think in application is where a lot gets lost. I believe that community input should be something that before anything goes up in a community board, in a community in general, that there should be community input. And with a lot of these Vision Zeros, the road diet, for example, one that we recently got in Castle Hill, there wasn't a lot of community input. You know, we kind of get these things, for lack of a better term, kind of shoved down our throats, and we have to be okay with it. And when the community complains about traffic or long waiting times at a light or whatever that may be, then we have to come up with an explanation when we weren't involved in the.
So
Right.
somehow you were responsible for it, even though you weren't in on the planning. So
Right.
we're talking about, and if I hope I get my directions right, west of the Bruckner down Castle Hill Avenue.
Is that
Do I have
right?
that right?
Yeah, Bruckner. It's actually on Castle. There's two that we got on White Plains Road and Castle Avenue. Castle Avenue, north of Cross Bronx, before the Westchester train station.
And what do you hear? I mean, people. I mean, I've been there, and it can be hard to find a parking space.
Well,
the first thing you got to do is find another area to park in because there's no spaces over there.
A lot of cars. It's a very active corridor. Merchants, they just went through their numbers to get a bid, so that's going to be a bid soon, which is a first bid in our district, which is on Castle Hill. So there's a lot of businesses there. A lot of cars do double park and go in and out for deliveries or to get food, especially during lunch. And that's a corridor they wanted to do a road diet. Now, the Vision Zero road diets, we're not totally against that. We advocate for safety. We want people to be safe and pedestrians to be safe. But there's a corridor that they made it 2 lanes to 1, and it just exacerbated the situation. I mean, the Cross Bronx Expressway alone is one of the most congested corridors in the United States of America. There's a very busy corner in Cross Bronx and Westchester. And busy times, it's just a bottleneck.
People are dying to get off the Cross Bronx. I can't even imagine the last time I was on there because Bronxites know you never go, and then those roads get backed
up. It just
up.
makes it worse. So there's a dialogue between us and DOT to try to fix those little segments. We're not against the tire project, but some sections really doesn't make sense to us, and we're trying to fix those things with DOT.
You know, if you look at, let's say, the areas down by where the YMCA is, at the end of Castle Hill Avenue, those are big, wide roads. If you said to me, we're going to create bike lanes and do those things,
That makes sense.
I would say,
We're all for that.
Why not? You know, and encourage. Certainly, we want to encourage people to use bicycles. But in some of these business areas, for me, and I've seen them, and I drive in them, and I walk in them, and I, take mass transit in them like anybody else, and it becomes a problem. Do you have any new prospective projects like that coming up?
Not at this time.
Okay. Let's talk about, it's funny how transportation issues become huge. I mean, we have so many other issues, but every time we talk to community boards, they're big. And in yours, I mean, you have the ferry. I'm going to ask you this. So I don't live in that part of the Bronx, and there are times that I've said, I'm going down to Lower Manhattan, to Wall Street. Why don't I take the ferry? But if I do that, mass transit would take me an hour to get there from where I live, and there's no place to put your car.
No parking.
Was that a mistake to launch this really very valuable resource and not have a parking area?
It's a good question. When EDC came to us, which is the agency that put in the ferry, was one of the biggest concerns we had and everybody on the committee and the community in general was, how about parking? And EDC's response is, the ferry is, no ferry ship has parking except the Rockaways, which is more for emergency evacuation, and it's not meant for parking. It's meant for the people who live in the area and mass transit, train or bus, or walking distance. So we said, okay, and that's the response
so
we
you're
got.
telling me go get your own ferry. All right.
So the ferry has been great to the district. There is a parking issue that we're trying to combat, but for the most
And that
part,
probably doesn't make local, I'm sure you hear about it, it doesn't make local residents happy because their parking gets messed up because commuters and others, you know, if I decided to take the ferry, as soon as I saw space, I would take it.
Yes.
You know, go ahead.
that parking was a problem there to begin with. This has made it a little more issue, but the ferry itself, to get into Lower Manhattan, 48 minutes. There's 3 stops. We're advocating for a stop at LaGuardia Airport, which will be a game changer.
Wow.
So
Boy, then I really would take the ferry.
the
That would
students
be
that take it to Manhattan, which I never thought of, students taking it to college in Lower Manhattan, Manhattan Community College, BMCC, NYU.
Yeah.
When I have meetings in City Hall, I take the ferry. So it's a great amenity. EDC is investing more resources around the ferry. We're looking to invest in that park to be more conducive to the ferry and hopefully combat this parking issue. But
the park right near the edge over there.
Classen Point.
Classen Point
Park.
Park. And you're talking about building it up so then kind of comes like a mini destination.
Exactly.
Certainly on a nicer day than some of the ones we've had. People can go out there and enjoy, relax a little bit, and make even a Sunday afternoon of it. What about now? Ferry Point is getting one. Now that you are or either of you are the veterans, what are your thoughts about? You have advice for them, or what would you recommend for any new Bronx community getting one?
Well, something I want to say, because I'd be remiss if I don't. EDC is doing a 5:25 a.m. in the next week or so startup time. Like they're having a ferry that's leaving a lot earlier for people that need to reach the city earlier. So if I see that that's something and they're going to be measuring for success, that's successful, that would be a recommendation to pass along for that site.
Wow. In other words, take a look at the time
schedule,
frame.
the timing.
People get to work a little earlier.
and parking,
Correct.
they have a lot of space.
Well, they certainly have that advantage. They certainly, because there is enough area. Well, I don't want to say enough. I'm not going to judge that, but there is area for parking. Let's also, Ms. Alonso, talk a little bit about Metro North. Now, this, as I understand it, and sometimes perception and reality are a little bit different. As I understand it, they're doing their due diligence to involve communities. You had said that you think when they do these things, we ought to involve communities. Are you satisfied that your neighborhood is getting enough input into the new Parkchester Metro North stop?
I believe so. There's a new community council that has been formed. We attended a meeting, I believe it was a little less than a month ago, that's being sponsored by the borough president and also the Westchester manager. I'm sorry, I don't really know his title. But so they reached out to a couple of stakeholders, invited us to a meeting. It was very interactive, question and answers. They gave us an opportunity to address anything that we were uncertain about. They informed us so that we can inform the community about more or less the time frame. They also let us know, which I'm really happy about, that there's going to be like a 40-minute time safe between Parkchester and Penn Station. 50 minutes between Parkchester and Stamford that we're saving on commuting alone. So it's exciting. I think the community council has so far done their due diligence in reaching out to stakeholders, community members, and having us at the table.
How long do you think will it take? I mean, it was so exciting when they announced the 4 stations. I was like, all right, let's go, let's have that. But it's going to take a little while, right?
Several years, from my understanding. Off the top of my head, I don't recall, but.
Okay. You want to weigh in on?
I don't think anybody knows, but it's going to take a couple of, I would say 4 or 5 years. The space that needs to get access into Lower Manhattan first before they bring those trains. I hear 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It is coming. The money is secured. The borough president has been very instrumental with the governor to secure that funding, but it will be a game changer for Parkchester and that north corridor to take the train north or east and talk about economic development, the jobs. People could go take the train to jobs in Parkchester, vice versa, go into Manhattan, an added mode of transportation that we desperately need in the Bronx.
So let's talk about jobs. You're getting a new shopping center and all that. And then also let's attach that to the conversation about the bid and what your hopes are for the Castle Hill bid.
Where our office is, I think we've been there since the inception of community boards, but it hasn't been renovated. So we have a reface of our shopping center, which is called Bruckner Commons. And if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. We have the first ShopRite in the Bronx there. We have Burlington Coat Factory there. We're getting an LA Fitness there. And we have a bunch of new stores.
Well, we better get this traffic thing figured out. I'll tell you that.
We had a meeting with DOT, with the shopping centers, to work on traffic and traffic studies, and we'll continue that. But we're getting a lot of stores. If anybody has any input of what they would like to see in that shopping center, they can always contact our office. We'll forward it to the leasing department. Will be a Smash Burgers coming in. I don't know if there's any in the Bronx, and this side of the Bronx at least. But I know we have the first ShopRite and only ShopRite. So the residents are very happy. It is the hub. It is smack middle in our district. And there's parking, and our office is there, and we'll continue to be there.
So those of us who get off the Whitestone Bridge and we know that we've got to move into the Bronx a little bit, and I've only done that a million times, and so we slip off the Cross Bronx at Westchester Avenue, and then you go behind the McDonald's and like around Hugh Grant Circle, and then maybe you can connect up elsewhere to the Bronx River Parkway or get into the Bronx.
Or
that way.
When you get off the Whitestone Bridge, you take the Bruckner, you take the first
That's
exit
true,
White
you
Plains
could take
Road.
that. You could do that as well. My point is, for a long time, that was a reliable way to make an alternative to the Cross Bronx. But if you go there now, you'll sit behind the McDonald's, you'll sit going around, and I'm drawing with my finger because I've done it. I can't even tell you how many times.
A lot of trucks get stuck there where you're talking about.
Underneath the L, because there's kind of a weird turn there. Is there an answer for that? Is there a way to address that? It's right in front of the Assemblywoman's office.
I'm very aware. We've done several site visits with state and city DOT. We have offered recommendations to help fix those problems and also enforcement. But we're going to take a look. I take a look at it every couple of months. I have some ideas, and hopefully we could get down to fixing those problems. It's an issue there. The trucks get off to avoid, and there's trucks that come from all over the country. They don't know the area that well. It is listed as a truck route, and when they get off, they turn the wrong turn, and they get stuck underneath and they could be there for an hour or 2 or 3 hours waiting.
And then look at
an eternity, yeah.
You know, I have thought about this, and we don't have to pursue it, but I've always thought, as I move around the Bronx, there are streets I see big trucks on, and they have no reason to be on those streets. We should really draw some real clear maps and say, and we understand that businesses have to get deliveries. I mean, obviously, we want all our businesses to do well. Just to follow up that question and the bid, what do you think about the Castle Hill bid? You've got to be excited.
Yeah,
it's amazing?
We had no bid. Westchester, the closest bid we have is Westchester Square bid.
Right, which is really not really where you are.
No, that's the
Community
closest
Board
to our
11,
district. Yes,
yeah.
Community Board 11. So there was city council funding through our last and our current council member to help organize a bid. They're over their 51%. They need more than 51% of the landlords in that region, and they have it. And we'll be going to the city council, and then hopefully after that, we'll take a look at other areas in our district. It's huge.
To me, aside from some of the specifics about holiday lights or whatever, it brings brings kind of the community together. And listen, that Castle Hill shopping district, I mean, there's nice juice bars there. That's a really cool. I mean, you have the Havana Cafe is there, which is a popular spot. Let's talk about a couple of good things. York Film Studios, right? Talk to me about York, where they're at, and how it can and might benefit people of the Bronx.
I'm not certain. I know they did their groundbreaking in 2017. I'm not sure when they're going to be opening their doors, but we're very excited about the possibility of a lot of jobs, a lot of job opportunities coming from York Film.
In different industries than we've had.
Correct.
I mean, that's really exciting.
Very exciting. We get calls from residents all the time.
You
When
do?
do we apply?
Right.
And as soon as we know, we'll let you guys know.
And what I love is, so we know that we have filmmakers and we have photographers and we have people interested in production. Certainly at BronxNet Television, we have that all the time, and we're surrounded by people like that. Giving them another, think of one of the young BronxNet people who work here and learn how to work in a production company and really do really well. Well, they can now grow and get a real job in the Bronx. I vote yes. One thing, Mr. Rivera, you told me about was money for parks. You quoted a number to me before the show, $100 million for parks. That's a lot of money. I'm happy about that. talk to me about, now that's for your board or for the whole Bronx or
It's
what?
for our community board. From
$100 million?
City, state, and federal funding combined.
Wow.
We got nearly $100 million as of September of this year. I met with the Bronx Parks Commission and their team not too long ago to go over that and all the parks projects. It's a lot, but just something to point out is the Parkchester train station has Hugh Grant Circle and Virginia Park. That hasn't been renovated since it was there, I think in the 50s. It's underutilized. The program came out called Parks of Our Borders, which is $50 million.
So that is the green space that's kind of around the.
Yeah.
I've been doing this all the time. They have
So when you drive around that circle with the McDonald's, there's a fenced, it's underutilized space, and the Virginia Park. So there was an initiative called Parks of Our Borders. It was $50 million for 8 parks, and we were chosen. So we received almost $10 million to renovate Hugh Grant Circle and Virginia Park. And if you've ever been to Union Square, it's going to kind of look like that. Open
Union
space.
Square, Manhattan.
Yes, 14th Street. It's going to look like that. It's going to be huge for Parkchester, and the groundbreaking was not too long ago.
And Soundview Park has done well.
Soundview Park has a lot of amenities. There's a dog run now. The borough president was there. A new soccer field, a new basketball court and playground. So there's amenities in all our parks.
Boy, is this music to my ears. Do you want to just weigh in on that? Do you have a favorite project? I mean, maybe he's mentioned them, but a favorite project in this that you want to see happen? All of the above?
Well, all of the above. I mean, I have a 3-year-old son, so where haven't we been around the district? I mean, everywhere. And I'm particularly very excited. I'm going to school now. I travel to 34th Street, and I'm very excited. I take the Parkchester train station from work to see the changes that are going to be taking place there.
That is really
And then
exciting.
the York Film Studios is very exciting. We have the only 4-year cinema high school in our district. There's
There
hundreds of jobs. They're going to be giving back to the community. They're going to be filming here.
The last thing I just want to ask, when will the list of parks be available, or is it already available where that money is earmarked
Oh, we
for?
have a list.
I'm going to follow that up. I want to know.
You go to the parks website, and they have an interactive website that you could go look at the parks and follow the projects.
Listen, there is never a day that you two are not working really hard for that very large district and for the people there. And,
Yes, thank you.
And we thank you for your service. And one of the things I know, William, you and I know each other a long time. When you came aboard there, you really organized things. They got the website, they got the Facebook page, they're doing that. He's got the shirt.
We have a dinner every year that you spoke to.
I did.
You were a keynote speaker our second dinner.
Anyway, thank you so much. William Rivera, Shirley Alonso. Great job. What can we say? And you'll come back another time, we hope.
Thank you.
To give us the result of a lot of these projects. Folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, send us an email at bronxtalk@bronxnet.org. You can tweet us at BronxTalk. You can post them on our Facebook page. You can put it up in a skywriting, and we'll get the message to them and get you an answer. We thank our producer is Helen Greenberg. Our director is Nick Marrero. You know what's going to happen? We'll see you next week. Good night. Enjoy the